excited to be back to the office. We love Polo Friday. All right, it is 4 o'clock. Let's get this started. Okay, everybody out there who is joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Lindsay Davis, CEO and co-founder of Spartan Invest, here from my home office, where hopefully we are coming back. Not hopefully, we are coming back into the office next week. So we've been distant for a really long time. Super excited to be back together. Joining me today, I've got, now they've been with me before back in September. I've got Miranda Maxam and Stephanie Devine. I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you guys first. Miranda, go for it.
Hey guys, like Lindsay stated, my name is Miranda Maxam and I am the AR manager for Alabama Rental Property. Just a brief overview, I'm responsible for anything and everything rent related, making sure that your tenants pay their rent on time each and every month. I'm also responsible for managing our eviction process, working with our attorneys in those unfortunate circumstances that we have to go through the eviction process. And then I'm also in charge of the approvals process. I get the final okay for all of our tenants and just responsible for making sure that we've got the right investment for your property.
And I'm Stephanie Devine. I have been on here a few times now. I've been lucky enough to be the guest. So I'm just happy to be able to sip a little for happy hour at work. So no, but I've been here at the company for a while now, almost 6 years, and I'm the director of property management. So I have been here for a while, been through a lot, nothing quite like 2020, but we're going to make it through to the other side. And I know a lot of you guys, and I don't know a lot of you guys as well, but I'm excited to be here today to talk through this, unknown, challenging time for a lot of, folks in general, but also real estate investors. So I'm excited to, get some questions answered and just kind of lay out what we do know so far. So.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, ladies, so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I know I just had you on a few months ago. You thought you're going to get a break. But unfortunately, I needed you back on here because we are here today to talk about all things AR and evictions. And obviously, that's very important in real estate investing. And this has been quite a challenge to maneuver because we've never been in this situation before. In 2020, really quick recap, in March, all of a sudden, no more evictions or foreclosures. And I think that lasted for about 5 months. So that created such a backlog of tenants and of tenants that were in the eviction process, created a whole lot of issues. And then in September, there was the Eviction Moratorium by the CDC that stated that we had to halt on evictions. That just got pushed back to the end of January. And we are here talking more about it because of the Consolidated Appropriations Act, what that includes and how it affects real estate investors, because it is very different from the CARES Act that we saw. We're going to touch on all of that with Miranda and Stephanie today. But that's why they are back on here, because we've got to continue to talk about it with the new administration and the COVID cases still where they are. It is very, very likely, I'm going to go ahead and say probably a 99% possibility that this halt on evictions is going to be extended to the end of October. And if not throughout the rest of the year. And what does that mean? Does that mean that there are absolutely no evictions? Who qualifies for this eviction moratorium? There's so many questions and stuff. So that's why I've got the people that are in it every day, all day. They're on the phone with our attorneys. Miranda's the right-hand man for our attorneys in the eviction process. So Miranda, really quick, if you guys want more detail, we went into excruciating detail in the September SIPs about our AR process, what that looks like. So if you want to know more about that, go back and check out that that episode. But give us just 30,000 view looking down, what does the AR process look like at Alabama Rental Property?
Yeah, sure. AR process just briefly is, let's just start at the beginning. Rent's due on the 1st of the month for every tenant regardless. Rent is late after the 5th of the month. Between the 8th and the 10th of the month, the payment has not been received or posted to your account, your 7-day termination notice is created, and then it's posted on the front door no later than the 15th of each month. That way, 7 business days, not calendar days, we allow the notice to expire. That way we're able to get the property over to eviction if necessary by the 28th of the month at the latest. So that way we can start the following month fresh. I mean, like I said, or as Lindsay stated, the September video was super exciting, very detailed about the overall AR process and eviction process. But 1st, 5th, 8th to the 10th, 15th, and the 28th, and those are the magic numbers in AR. So.
Now, how many people are on your AR team now? Because that's changed a good bit in 2020.
It has. Thank you, 2020, for allowing us the capability to bring on 2 more individuals to the AR team, specifically focused on AR and evictions. So currently, right now, we've got three bodies focused on all of our properties, all of our evictions, and all of our AR, making sure we have enough hands on deck to go ahead and just handle it and make sure rent's paid, and if not, handle the eviction process.
Okay, so with the AR, so that's all of our current properties that are under management, which right now we have about 1,300 in Central and North Alabama. So the tenant placement, before we dive into that page turner of a Consolidation Appropriations Act, Stephanie, tell us a little bit about the application, so the tenant process, because to get, as we continue to purchase and turn over properties, placing tenants, what has that changed, or what does that look like now, comparatively speaking to last year? Because that plays right in to our accounts receivable, that number, and that eviction number.
Absolutely. So first, it looks like we had a chat question about the tornado recently. So I'll quick answer that. But we did have a couple of properties affected. Luckily, no one was harmed or anything, but it did hit pretty close to us. And I think we had 4 properties total that were affected. Not all of the properties got damaged, but trees and stuff. So it was a week here at ARP. But thanks for the question. Thanks for the shout out, Maureen. But yeah, so as Lindsay and Miranda had already mentioned, that during 2020, we've had to make a lot of process changes. 2 of those things, obviously, were bringing on a whole nother person for application approvals, and then also for, additional collections calls, AR eviction. We can't control a lot of the things about this situation, but we can control the amount of bodies we have to make sure we're doing everything we can do to make sure we have the right people in the houses, and, to also reach out and collect all the information we can about outstanding debts and stuff like that. So now, as far as the AR process goes, we haven't had a ton of changes. We have to be really consistent due to fair housing and things of that nature. However, we have been, we've always been diligent. We've always had our set of standards. But we have been hyper-focused on staying diligent about verifying everything, all the employment, all of the rental verifications. There's a whole nother wild card that we're dealing with here, because during 2020, landlords in general weren't able to process evictions normally, under certain circumstances. But we're dealing with a lot of people who may be trying to get out of their current house that may be in debt to a current landlord, but it may not have been filed because they couldn't be filed on. So we're having to be really, really diligent. We are not accepting anybody that we can't verify that information on, or that we can't verify their employment. And not that we were before, but it's just, we are going the extra mile on that stuff. And we've invested in 2 additional softwares that help us verify that background information. So our AR team, they're like a team of little private investigators all the time. Like if you've got it, they're going to find it. So we have, really ramped up on that side of things. But again, as far as qualifications perspective, that really hasn't changed much. But we are also seeing a lot of a higher number of falsified documents. So, online created pay stubs, situations like that. And, you always come into that, but we're just seeing a multitude of that, way more than we ever have before. So that's been a really not so fun trend to deal with. But, luckily we've got a really detail oriented team, and they've done a really good job of being able to catch all of that coming. But, as far as putting tenants into properties, there's always a risk. COVID 2020, your tenant could look perfect on paper, or your prospect rather could look perfect on paper, and you could end in an eviction 3 or 4 years later, even after they've been a perfect tenant. We've seen that happen, and it's really, really unfortunate, no matter how you get there, no matter what the steps were. And the team really just does everything they can up front to really to combat that. And we normally, our approval rate's around 60%. Currently, we've seen about a 10% decrease. So we are approving less percentage of the applications we get in. Right now, we're just under 50% as far as our approval rate. And our applications have not dropped. The volume has not dropped, but the percentage of approval rate has dropped a little bit, which is to be expected. You have people without as much job history or volatile job history in 2020. And, while we're trying to help people find housing, we do have to verify and do the diligence on behalf of the investor to make sure that, everyone's protected in those situations, because they're not fun for anyone. They're not fun for the investor. They're not fun for the tenant. They're not fun for us either. Nobody wins when it ends like that. So we avoid it at all costs. Absolutely. But January is off to a really strong start. We processed over 100 applications already this month. And our senior leasing agent attributes that to, stimulus money coming in. She's heard a lot of her prospects, her clients talking about, having a little bit of extra income, which is great, because that, just kind of doing what it's supposed to. But, they're using it for new housing. So we have to be extra careful to make sure that they're not going through something with their old landlord. But we are also expecting tax refund checks to hit very soon, which, as a lot of you know who are experienced investors or have been with us for a while, it impacts our leasing volume greatly. So we are ramped up and ready to go. We're ready for busy season and all the fun stuff. So
that's a really good point, honestly, Stephanie, that I had not even thought about, as far as the evictions, and that with the halt on evictions for majority of 2020, then if there was like a process, or if something outside of the court system was used to place a tenant outside of a particular property, would not show on their record. Outside of the COVID reasons, I do want to clarify that we are working with, there's tons and tons of tenants that we have payment plans with, we have worked with, that have suffered from the effects of COVID-19, not necessarily from the illness, but from a job reduction, layoffs, all of that stuff. We are working. If you communicate with Miranda and her team, she is working with you in setting up a payment plan. So I do want to preface it that real estate is not without the human factor, and we are very sympathetic to that. However, it is still an investment, and we still have to be diligent about, like Stephanie said, who we're placing in these properties. And that's just a really good point that you may not have, or I guess me certainly, I wasn't proactively thinking. It's like, well, wait a minute, that might not be on their record because of what all in 2020 encompassed. So that's a really good catch. So really quick, I keep saying really quick, but you don't have to be really quick. Go through kind of the CARES Act, big pictures, first stimulus, second stimulus, just the big picture, what it is. Just for a recap of what it was. So Miranda she's going to dive into the new act and the Consolidated Appropriations Act. So talk a little bit about the CARES Act and the CDC Eviction Moratorium, and the significance of both of those, so we can get a fair comparison and, compare and contrast the new act with the previous ones.
Yeah, of course. And where we are today with all of it. And, disclaimer, I'm, not an expert on any of this. I certainly haven't studied all 10,000 pages plus of all of the acts, but big picture, like Lindsay said, the CARES Act, everybody kind of knows it was a stimulus package. We want to keep the economy going, money for individuals, money for businesses, keep everything rolling, even though we were experiencing so much hardship at the same time. So, putting out all of the funds and making sure people have money, making sure people have housing, the halt on evictions, all of that. Well, once that halt on evictions lifted, we had about a 30-day period, I think it was, where we could send some certain people to evictions. And then all of a sudden, boom, eviction moratorium hits us early in September. And that one was, the point was, don't spread don't spread COVID as the point of everything is, but, to stop homelessness, to stop people from being evicted, whether it's, just with a HUD loan or a FHA loan, whatever it might be, everything was halted even further through the end of the year. And, everybody kind of suspected that it was going to go a little bit further. But the evictions halted, and it did have specifications. You have to prove that you were affected by COVID. You have to sign a declaration under penalty of perjury. I've been affected by X, Y, and Z. Here's my bank statements. Here's this. You do have the opportunity to challenge it. However, it's pretty big thing to take on in the current environment to challenge it. So tenants were sending in the declaration saying, yes, I have been affected by COVID. And so if you have the declaration, you can't move forward with eviction. And Miranda's going to move into the folks who didn't sign all of that. But so that halted evictions, then they extended it until January 31. And most recently, they've extended it through March 31. So we are a little bit further down the line yet still. So through end of Q1 at least. And as Lindsay touched on earlier, we do expect it to extend longer. Obviously we're not experts on that either, but the way things are going, that's what we anticipate. Well, all of this was designed with the individual in mind, and landlords were kind of just like, hey, sorry about you. You got to float everything. This is on you. There was no rental assistance, no utility assistance, in any of that. And so finally, the Consolidated Appropriations Act came along, and they said, hey, landlords, hey, utility companies, hey, people who are being affected by this, shouldering this burden the whole, majority of the year, we're going to do something for you too, because that's what the situation a lot of investors are in right now, myself included, unfortunately. I'm right there with you if you're experiencing this right now. But either way, so to dive in a little bit more into that without going too far into it, Miranda's going to cover a little bit of it as well. But there was a $25 billion pool of money out there for a lot of different things, obviously, but the $25 billion was for rental assistance and utility assistance. And so of that $250 billion, $257 million of it was allocated to Alabama. And of that $257 million, $6.2 million alone was allocated to Birmingham City. So in order to qualify for this money, the unit of local government has to have a population of over 200,000. So not every locale in Alabama is going to be able to benefit from this assistance, unfortunately. But there's 9 units within Alabama that will receive rental assistance as far as the Consolidated Appropriations Act goes. And there are some qualifications that the tenants have to meet to, meet these the qualifications to receive the money, and the landlords as well. Unfortunately, we don't have too many details beyond that, how we get the money yet, but Miranda, again, will go into that a little bit more. But we do, the 6.2 million is only for Birmingham. Jefferson County is also considered a unit where the big majority of our properties are located. There are a lot of, most of these areas are where a large majority of our properties are located. So we will be able to benefit from that rental assistance as soon as we are able to with clear cut instructions.
So Stephanie, your audio was cutting out a little bit, or it was going up and out just a bit. So I'll just recap really quick. So it was the rental assistance, the biggest difference in the Consolidated Appropriations Act. So it was 900 billion, and then the 25 for the rental assistance. Alabama got 250 million for that, and then Birmingham got 6.2 million.
Correct.
And then the population has to be over 200,000 for that specific area. And Dave, that is a fantastic question. We're about to talk right about that. We're going to dive really into that because that's super, super important. That's why we're here. So the over 200,000 population minimum for a district. Now, I know you guys out there in Southern California and New York and other large cities think, where do people live that don't have over 200,000 people? I know. It's in Alabama, I promise you. There's some pretty rural parts. And that's Alabama. That's what we love.
Alabama for the country. That's why people move to Alabama for the country feel.
Right.
We like it here.
We love it. Wide open spaces here for sure. So, okay. So what does that process look like? Like, how does I'm Mr. Investor, Mrs. Investor, and I've got a property and I have a tenant that's been affected and has been laid off, needs rental assistance, and now can actually get rental assistance to help, so the burden isn't 100% on the landlords and the owners and the investors. So now that with this new act that's allowed, Miranda, what does that process look like? Like what have you seen? What do you know?
That is a fantastic question, and I wish I had a more detailed, clear explanation, but my answer is I have no idea. What we know so far is that, yes, the program's been administered through the Housing Finance Authority. There is an application process, yes. We do not know at this time. There has been no federal guidance at all as to what the application looks like, what the requirements are for said application. I do know that according to the order from what we're reading from the Consolidated Appropriations Act, is that yes, we can apply on behalf of the tenant so long as they sign an application. What application? I'm still waiting for that. I would love to just go ahead and apply in bulk for every tenant that's behind. So we're still waiting on what that looks like. But who qualifies? Where do we apply? Who do we apply with? And from what I can gather from the order is it's going to be through, there are grantees in each district that have applied. They had until January the 14th at midnight to send in their information to be a grantee. And that is where the funds are going to be dispersed to. And those grantees are responsible for paying the landlord and utility companies directly. So the one good thing about this, it doesn't go through the tenant and then back to the landlord. It gets paid directly to us. I'm assuming, big clap, big round of applause for that.
No, I'm sorry, that just deserves the clap.
Clap, right? From what I can assume, we would be applying through third-party organizations already set up to provide rental assistance within the community. So places like JCCEO, places like the Salvation Army or Bridge Ministries or some other really fantastic nonprofit organizations. Again, I assume that's how we're going to apply, but there is no strict instruction yet. So I like I said, I'm on this every single day. I'm looking at the Treasury website. I'm following Mayor Woodfin. I'm looking and trying to get information through our attorneys and through their contacts and the Justice of the Peace. Unfortunately, there is just no straight line answer or direction as to how to apply. we know that we can apply, the tenant can apply, and we can apply on behalf of the tenant, which I can guarantee you that's number one on our list right now. As soon as it comes out, this is the application, this is where you apply. ARP is all hands on deck right now. This is number one priority that we're all going to be applying for tenants. And it's also finding out what tenants qualify. It doesn't state specifically, do you have to have a CDC declaration signed already on file? Is this in conjunction with those same interrogatories that we discussed back in September? That really exciting part where we talked about everything that they had to fit. So again, it's what the order says, and reading directly from the Consolidated Appropriations Act, essentially all it is saying in general, in order to qualify, is you need to be past due on your rent, either have a past due notice or an eviction notice, have one person qualify for unemployment, and show just cause that you have a financial hardship. So in my opinion, that's everybody on our rent roll. We're applying for everybody. But again, it's just trying to get that direction. Yes.
So yeah, sorry. So do you have to have the declaration from the eviction moratorium by the CDC? Do you have to have that signed in order to get the rental assistance?
Again, I have no idea. There is no yes or no answer to that. I mean, Stephanie and I spent most of the afternoon yesterday trying to comb through the 2,280 pages to find a specific yes or no. I would assume that yes, if the moratorium came out, that the Appropriations Act would be in conjunction with that, because it wouldn't necessarily make sense to me to have, you know what I mean, to have them back to back, but they not be intertwined with one another. Again, I'm going to be reaching out to our attorney, bothering them as always, asking them questions to confirm for me. But we're prepared that if, the education process with our tenants, whatever we find out, however we can go about assisting and helping them get that rental assistance, the AR team for sure, along with all of ARP, is ready to help educate and get this process moving so that we can get that income back.
Right. And Miranda, that's a really good point. And for everybody that's listening out there, we pushed this month's Sips with Spartan to the last business day of the month on purpose so we could try to wait for the directive and get you guys as much information. And the sad truth about it is that there is none. And it's so frustrating. And I get it. And like Stephanie said, I mean, she's an investor as well as I, and she has a property that's in need. I mean, this household is in need of rental assistance, utility assistance, and there just has been no directive yet. Like Miranda was saying, these grantees are the ones that can disperse the funds that are allocated to Alabama, and they had to file the application by January the 14th. And since then it's, if they're approved, are they approved? What does the application look like? What are the, some of the requirements? I mean, like you said, half of the median income of the area, and you have to be, I believe it's like, what is it? One person has to be on unemployment, at least one person, kind of thing. So there are some requirements that are stipulated in the act, but as far as like what it looks like to get our investors and, and our residents the assistance that they need, it's just not clear yet. And it's very, very frustrating. And we are on, I mean, Miranda's stalking.
Yeah, very much.
I believe stalking. It's kind of borderline inappropriate, probably. The amount of stalking she's doing to our attorneys trying to find get more information.
3 in the morning. She'll be like, "Hey, look what I found! It's 3 in the morning." So this girl doesn't stop.
100%. I mean, but it's and that's another reason for bringing on more people to our AR department as well too, is that we are staffed in just that to help these any resident that needs rental assistance to help file the application. Because if we can't figure it out, if our attorneys who have been doing rental law, eviction law for, 40 years, there's still they cannot give us any direction. I can't imagine that our a lot of residents who don't live in this world would be able to accurately figure it out either. So we are staffed and ready to file for any assistance that we can get our investors, because this is a really big deal, and it doesn't look like it's going away for the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to say, Lindsay, not to interrupt you, but
no, go for it.
And we are prepared, all hands on deck for this. Like, this is not an AR thing. This is a whole department, whole company thing. So as soon as we do figure it out, we are going to literally eat, sleep, and breathe, applying for tenants. This isn't all about us. We want to make sure that they have places to live as well. And if they truly deserve the aid, they deserve it, and we want to help them get it. And so it's going to be an all hands on deck effort. Especially if the funds, which we don't really know at this point, we believe it's going to be first come, first serve. But, I don't know if any of you guys did the math, but $6.2 million for the entire city of Birmingham. Yes, it's no California, but the number doesn't really seem that big. So we want to make sure that our investors and our tenants are covered, if they qualify for it right out of the gate. So it's not something that we're going to take lightly at all. And we're just going to, we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that all of our applications are first in line, that our tenants' applications are first in line, to make sure that those funds are available to them for assistance. Because, if you've truly been affected by COVID, then absolutely, we want to make sure that you do get that assistance. And not everyone's going to get it. That number is, while it's a big number, it's fairly small for the amount of people that have been affected, in my opinion.
100%. And that's a really good point too, is that the way that the act reads, and I know I said this earlier, but man, it's a page turner. It's an exciting read. But the way that it does read is that it will be very much set up like the PPP loans that we saw from the CARES Act, in that it is a kind of first come, first serve. So, for that, and that's another reason why we have to stay vigilant on this amount, what the application looks like, because we need to make sure that we're kind of the first in line. And it's like I think it said, hey, look, if at the end of the year, they'll see if they have any excess of funds, which I doubt there would be an excess of funds. They said it was like December 31st before they reallocate that amount. I would highly doubt it was kind of the same with the PPP. It was eliminated rather quickly. So the assumption would be that this would be the same. One thing Miranda, I want you to talk a little bit about would be, okay, so I'm an investor, kind of go back to the scenario. I'm an investor. I have, and there are some, and we're very sensitive to the situation, but there are some, and there always will be, the residents that are not affected by COVID, however, are still in eviction. What does that mean? I mean, does that mean we can't evict
no, not at all.
Tenants? We can't move forward with that process. What does that look like?
No, not at all. Actually, quite the opposite. One thing that I think is really promising right now is that we're still having set-outs done. Evictions, we're still getting those possession judgments from the court. People are still vacating. They're still getting set out. Yes, it is a little bit of a longer process just due to the overall volume in our district right now, because you have to think about it. Logically, there were 5.5, almost 6 months where nobody got an eviction. You could not send a single person over. And that's not just for ARP, but it's for the entire country. So you have to think about the backlog for those 5-6 months that nobody could go. So now everybody's, chomping at the bit to try to get their eviction first in line. So it does add a little bit of time to our normal eviction process of about 90 to 120 days. But again, the fact that the people who are unable to show that they've been affected by COVID, it's so promising that we're still getting set outs done. We're still getting those judgments. we're still able to get that process and keep it moving, even though it is a little bit slower. I mean, again, it's super promising. A little bit of patience, a little bit of extra patience is required from all parts, especially myself. I'm pacing back and forth, just waiting on that phone call from the sheriff. But definitely the process is still ongoing. Set outs are still happening. It's just a little bit of extra time.
One of the truly amazing things that we discovered, and I know if you guys have tuned in to any other previous episode with SIPs, you guys know we've talked about this quite a bit with all aspects of the property management company. But one of the things that we found shocking, amazing, and truly says something in regards, I think personally, to Alabama and our residents, is that, Miranda, what did we finish the year 2020 AR? What did we finish that year at?
We finished the year as a whole at 5% AR, which is just, I have no words for that. It's unbelievable.
Right. And I set you up because I knew the answer, because it's that good, like it was. I mean, and that's a testament to you, your team, and that's also a testament to, it's like in real estate and the investment in general, and that at the end of the day, even when it's not a legal requirement, the overwhelming majority of people will still pay their rent.
Yes.
Which is, we did not think that was going to be the case when everything first shut down. Honestly, we were ready for the worst, So I think that does say a lot about our residents, about the residents in Alabama as well. So yeah, that's right, Maureen. 95% of all rent was collected in 2020, and it's surprising. It's very, very shocking to have that. We're very proud of Miranda and her team. Let's see, our new tenants, this is a really good question. Our new tenants, Miranda, I'm going to pass this one to you, still allowed to use the eviction moratorium, or are they excluded?
No, of course, this moratorium is not applicant specific. It is nationwide, and it covers every individual in the United States, whether they're new tenants, old tenants. They are covered under this order if they are able to show proof that they qualify. That's why on the front end of the application process, we're so diligent about trying to make sure that those rental verifications are done correctly, that they are verified, and that their pay is also verified as well, to make sure that we are approving that right investment.
I think it's worth noting as well that even if they're not a new tenant, even tenants that are not in eviction currently are sending in those declarations saying, hey, I'm going to be at risk for eviction. And those tenants are utilizing that declaration as well. And, we have to accept it. Our attorneys, if they send in proof that they've been affected prior to even being in eviction, we can't send them to eviction. So it's not even just excluded to folks who are in eviction. It's like Miranda said, it is non-discriminatory. I guess the only thing that they're requiring is that you have actually been affected by COVID, but eviction, non-eviction, new, old, it doesn't matter. Anybody can give us a declaration.
That's a really good point too, that we discussed in the last one that we haven't brought up yet, is that you don't necessarily have to be in eviction, where we thought that was the case. And then when the CDC passed the moratorium, we started receiving declarations for residents that weren't in eviction. And we were like, we had to seek counsel on this. Like, hey, what does this mean? What does this look like? What should we do? Kind of thing. It's definitely been a very big learning process, and hopefully it's a learning curve that we can take all of the knowledge that we've learned and throw it out the window after all of this is over with, and we don't ever have to know this ever again. Hopefully that's the case.
That's so encouraging and sad all at the same time.
I know, right? It really is. It honestly is. So before we got started, with these are kind of like the topics that we wanted to cover. We got some really great questions submitted. So Stephanie, one of the questions that we got was as far as like the leases and our renewals, and I would, what did that look like in 2020 versus 2019? It still definitely plays a part in the collection process and turnovers, everything like that. So what did our renewals and tenant retention look like in 2020?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess I can start out by saying that, while COVID has absolutely affected a lot of aspects of our business, obviously, or, that's what we've been talking about this whole time. But, during COVID, we experienced a crazy increase in leasing, and, we just didn't see a slowdown at all, which was extremely fortunate. And same goes for renewals. We ended the year at 55% renewals, which our goal this year is 60%. We're upping our goal. People don't want to move during this time. It's not as easy to move during this time as far as, the resources needed to move, that type of thing. So we saw a really great renewal number at the end of the year. We did see a decrease in number of properties that experienced an increase in rental, a rent bump, essentially, only because we were more flexible to working with tenants that were paying their rent, that were keeping up the properties. We always kind of have that philosophy overall. You always want to keep a great tenant no matter what. However, this year it's been a little bit more, just a little bit more in the forefront even than it has been prior, because you don't want to lose a great tenant or, risk a $25 or $50 rent bump to, go through a vacancy and move out, those types of things, to maybe get a tenant who might lose their job in a month. It's just not worth it. So we saw a very consistent percentage as far as renewals go. And we saw, again, a slight decrease in the average rent increase, but I feel okay about that, knowing that we didn't lose great tenants. And again, we're shooting for 60%. We're on track for that so far for Q1, because obviously we're already tracking. We almost finalized Q1's numbers with our 60-day requirement. So we are just about there, but I think that, the future looks bright for renewals, and, it's stayed really consistent, and January alone has just been, the volume is there. Like, we're not seeing a decrease in the leads. We're not seeing a decrease in the application. So, leasing is looking great. And currently we're over 90%, we're currently over 95% occupancy on a rolling average. And so that is, to me, that's an excellent indicator of the rental market being super strong still here in Birmingham and surrounding markets, of course. But our occupancy has not suffered. It's just gone up and up and up throughout the year. And so I feel really, really great about 2021 and, renewals, leasing, all of the fun stuff that goes into those numbers.
Yeah, and that's one thing that a lot of investors have, or a lot of economists have predicted is the demand and increase for the single family home. You've got a flock to the more suburban areas, out of the heavy metro areas. That may not meet that 200,000 population threshold. Everybody kind of seeking a little bit more space, and then also out of necessarily the multifamily. And we've seen a pretty big increase in the occupancy, not for Alabama rental property, because we don't have a lot of multifamily, but an increase in the single family versus a slight decrease in the multifamily. We're seeing that trend continue in Jefferson County and in Alabama, and that families that might be working from home or be making work-life adjustments want a little bit more space. So, I think that all of that is going to be on the rise. The biggest hindrance, you know, like Stephanie said, leasing, we've been getting the properties occupied and leased. We've been diligent about checking all of the applications and being aware of the potential roadblocks or, you know, speed bumps or whatever you want to call them. And then with the AR collection ending at 5%, renewals being on the increase. So all of those are kind of on the upswing. The biggest hindrance right now that we see as a property management company is Miranda's department, unfortunately, is rent collection and the eviction piece. And again, that's why we're talking so much about it. So just really quick, Miranda, and I know, so we're running out of time, but getting to the point, what updates can we tell investors if, let's do two of them. So let's do, if they do have a property that is currently in eviction, what does that update look like? And then two, so what does that update look like as far as the application? You know, as soon as we know something, what is this is the game plan. Like this is what we're going to do. And this is what going to happen.
Sure. So if you've got a tenant that's in eviction right now and there is not a declaration, I do get an update from our attorney's office once a week, once the unlawful detainer has been filed, in terms of where we are in that process. So you can expect to see a little bit of extra time on the regular non-CDC declaration evictions, and you should be able to get those updates once a week. And then on ones that have a declaration, that's a complete stop. My team is working diligently on reaching out to our tenants to confirm and obtain that required documentation in those interrogatories, because in order to get the eviction to move forward, we need those documents, because I'm not going to risk liability on Alabama rental property at $250,000, and certainly not for myself at $250,000. So we're wanting to protect the company and the investor as well as the tenant. So we're diligent in educating these tenants, reaching out to them several times a week. We got your declaration, we don't have your documents. I need you to send me those immediately to avoid your declaration being challenged. Now, again, when it comes to the rental assistance, checking daily for that application, trying to obtain those updates. And like you said, I think you said it perfectly. I'm stalking our attorney at this point. Like, I'm almost to the point of hanging outside their window and tapping on it for an update. As soon as we get that application, I also have a couple of questions myself. Can we apply for rental assistance for tenants in eviction? Or is it only for tenants who are not in eviction? What's the process look like for that? All I know is at this point, as soon as we find out what the application process looks like, I can guarantee you we're either going door knocking to get these applications signed, and we're applying in bulk for everyone. It's just, we've got to get that money back to our investors. We've got to get these tenants back in the positive, and keep them starting out fresh moving forward. We've got to get that money in house, and I can guarantee you, zero ego aside, I am tirelessly working with my team to make sure that we get as many updates as often as they come out.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, really quick, Scott, just to clarify, so we've got the declaration evictions and unemployment affecting rentals versus the 95% AR collection, just to make sure that the numbers work. And I agree. Hey, we're metric driven company. We want to know. So the AR, so the 5% of collection, that was all of 2020. You know, and that varied. And I can't give you 100% month to month. I think we ended December right at 7%. Am I lying? What was it?
Yeah, 7%.
So right at 7% in December, which December typically and traditionally tracks a little bit higher. Unfortunately, we tend to place, if it's emphasis on Christmas time and spending. But the declaration and evictions, Miranda, tell me how many properties do we currently have in eviction?
Ooh, dun, dun, dun. We have 40 properties currently in eviction. And remember, take into consideration on a normal year without the pandemic and COVID, you're looking at about 10 properties a month that go through the eviction process. 5.5 months, almost 6 months of no evictions, you got a whole lump right now that had to go. So we're sitting at 40 right now.
40. Okay, that's right. You're sounding. So we're at 40 people currently in eviction, and of course that number does not factor into that AR number. You know, those people are the ones that are not paying rent. Now, unemployment for Alabama, and hey, Alabama is dead last in a lot of things, but one of the things that they were also dead last in is the industries that were negatively affected, in that Alabama's economy is just not based on entertainment and, you know, kind of tourism. There were a lot of industries that just did not see the layoffs, and currently Alabama's unemployment, I can't give you the exact number, it's under 5%, it's like 4.8, I believe. I don't want to lie to you, but right now it's under 5%. So okay, thank you. All right, good. I just want to make sure that we clarified that, and that that the state's unemployment is not it's not to the over 7% that we see in the country as a whole. We did get pretty high when everything was shut down. But like I said, that we have a lot of very high paying blue collar jobs, manufacturing jobs that have not seen just the mass layoffs that a lot of other cities and states have experienced. So we're very fortunate in that. And again, that's, you know, it's a bad topic to talk about when you're talking about eviction, but it is one thing that does make Alabama very attractive when it comes to rental investments. So, well, guys, thank you so much. Thank you guys. So wait, 40 properties. Oh, out of how many total? So we add about, sorry, I missed that one. We add about 25 properties. I want to make sure I get all the questions. We add about 25 properties to our property management company every month. So that number is constantly growing by 25, and total, Stephanie, give me our exact number.
We're over 1,300 right now.
So we're right over 1,300 properties under management.
So
thank you, Maureen. We're at 4.4% unemployment.
And so like Miranda said, our numbers are definitely elevated right now just because of the backlog from 2020. I mean, there's no other way to put it. We have to be open about it because, I mean, you know, that's one of our core, you know, that's one of our core values. So, you know, our numbers are high right now. And if somebody tells you their numbers are not high right now, I would be worried about that too. But yes, our numbers are a little elevated right now. They're a lot elevated right now for obvious reasons. But again, we've got the team, we've got the staff, and we're all on the same team here. If you're not getting paid, we're not getting paid. And so I tell that to investors all the time. So we are definitely on the same team, and in property management, you know, we're on slim margins as it is. So we're working we're all rowing in the same direction. Absolutely. So, and the other good thing that I was going to say about Lindsay's, and I'm cutting you off, but Alabama is also, you know, while it's, you know, it can be a double-edged sword, but a lot of people are back to work. You know, our restaurants are open. You know, there's a lot of things that are open around here that aren't open other places. So, you know, there are people getting back to work. So,
right. Yes. So, thank you, Maureen, for the clarification on the unemployment. I was close. Thank you guys so much for joining me again and talking about this. I know that this is a very, very, very dry subject, but when you couple it with wine, I feel like it makes it easier. So cheers. All right. So thank you guys so much. Thank you to everybody for joining us. We are here to provide you guys information on Alabama, Spartan Invest, Alabama rental properties, and anything else that we can provide you with to help further your financial freedom in the terms of real estate investing. So, Miranda, superstar, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us and talking about this. Stephanie, you're so awesome. Thank you for being here and talking more about property management and AR. You guys want to say a goodbye?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. It's always great to see all of our investors. I can't see you guys right now, but I feel your presence, and someday we'll be able to visit in person again. So Spartan Summit 2021.
That's right. Here we go. 2021 Spartan Summit. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. As soon as we get more updates, you guys will be the first to know. We want to keep you guys informed. Thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.